And that's where, as I was bent down looking like this, the head came down through the, underneath the brush and looked at me, but I thought it was.
Now, the bottom of the windowsill, is about chest high. So this thing was leaned over, hunched over, and looking in the window. So something threw this thing 20 feet in the air before it hit the ground and rolled another 10 feet.
In these chilling accounts, a former Navy man recalls a night that shook his military-trained nerves, while elder outdoorsmen share the wisdom of a lifetime spent in the woods. Their words carry the weight of experience, describing wood knocks that split the silence, massive figures standing just beyond the firelight, and tracks so large they seem impossible. These are not tall tales. They are heartfelt testimonies from those who have lived through encounters that forever changed how they see the wild. Footage, courtesy, Show Me the World location. Southern United States. The southern United States is a place where wilderness still rules. Piney woods stretch for miles, swamps snake through forgotten back roads, and small towns are separated by endless farmland and dense forest. These woods hold secrets, stories whispered by locals, passed down by hunters and farmers who have seen things most of us wouldn't believe. Lurking here is a creature known by many names: swamp ape, skunk ape, booger, and of course, Bigfoot. For some, it's just folklore, but for others, this is a very real danger.
Lurking in these forest lands is an animal few have seen, with names like swamp ape, skunk ape, booger, and Bigfoot. This animal is blamed for the deaths of pets, farm animals, and even people. To find this elusive animal, you have to know what to look for, and to know the animal's behavior, you have to hunt.
Meet Don McDonald, a man who calls himself a Bigfoot hunter, not for sport, but for protection. The main reason I hunt is to protect people, Don explains. I get reports constantly from folks who are scared in their own homes. Dogs get killed, chickens get slaughtered, and sometimes entire families are too afraid to step outside after dark without a gun. One report Don recalls still chills him. A family near Red Bluff lost 7 or 8 geese, not to coyotes, but to something much stranger. A coyote won't do that, Don says. These geese had their feathers plucked and laid in a neat pile, and the bodies were gone. That's not how predators work. That's something else. Something with hands. Other stories get darker. In North Mississippi, a family reported something beating on the side of their house late at night. It peered into the bedroom window, at their 8-year-old daughter. She said it looked like a big gorilla, Don recalls, and the bottom of that window is chest high. Whatever it was had to crouch to look in. The next night it got worse. Something outside picked up their AC unit and threw it nearly 30 feet across the yard. The first dent in the ground was 20 feet away. A bear can't do that, Don says. A person can't do that. And whatever did it had to have opposable thumbs. That's not just scary, that's intelligence.
Now, the bottom of the windowsill, is about chest high. So this thing was leaned over, hunched over, and looking in the window. So something threw this thing 20 feet in the air before it hit the ground and rolled another 10 feet. A human can't do that. And it takes an opposable thumb to be able to pick something up and throw it. A bear can't, it's not gonna pick it up. It would swat it away. And there are a lot of bears in Mississippi. They are making a big comeback, but this was not a bear.
To add credibility to these accounts, the late Dr. Jeff Meldrum, one of the most respected researchers in this field, shared how these sightings shaped his life. May his soul rest in peace.
As a youngster, I was familiar with the stories about Bigfoot. I actually saw the Patterson-Gimlin film at the Spokane Coliseum with my brother and my dad. And one thing sort of led to another. It steeled my interests that were already budding in natural history and primate and human evolution. And so the prospect of there being this maybe a missing link or some primitive form of human out in the wilds
But perhaps the most gripping testimony comes from an eyewitness who had a face-to-face encounter.
Down the hill, the moon had come out and I could see to walk, so I didn't have my flashlight on. Well, I got probably halfway down and I saw what I thought from a distance was a tree. And as I got closer to it, I realized there's no tree there. That tree would have been in the way when I was raking hay. It would have been in the way. I wouldn't have...
As he crept closer, the tree moved.
I stopped. And I had my flashlight in my hand, so I turned my light on and I shined up. And when I shined up, this creature turned away from me and stepped down into the creek behind the trees. I have a extremely large hand. My hand would have looked like a child's hand inside the hand that I saw hanging down beside this creature.
Panic took over.
All I had with me was a little .22 Magnum pistol is all I had on me, because that's what I used for coyotes. So I turned and I ran. And I got back to the top of the hill and I told my cousin, I said, hand me your AR. I said, man, I don't know what this is. I said, but it's big. I said, it's taller than I am. It's bigger than I am. I said, it's huge.
Stories like these keep hunters like Don and researchers like Meldrum committed to uncovering the truth. Whatever stalks these woods, whether it's a flesh and blood creature or something we can't yet explain, is smart, strong, and very real to the people who live here. And until it's found, the piney woods of the South will remain a place of mystery and fear. Footage, courtesy, mysterious unknown location, Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Tonight, we step into the mind of a man who has carried his story in silence for more than 3 decades. Curtis Reeves is a Navy veteran, a husband, a father, and the keeper of an encounter that began in the woods of Coatesville, Pennsylvania in 1987. It was meant to be a bonding trip, a father and son moment in the quiet stillness of a Pennsylvania winter morning. 11-year-old Curtis had just earned his hunting license, eager to follow in his father's footsteps. The air was cold, the ground still damp from the previous night's frost, and the full moon hung like a lantern over the forest.
Back in 1987, he was out hunting with his dad on a property in Pennsylvania, and they ran up on a Bigfoot creature, and this thing was less than 10 feet away from him. He heard a voice in his head tell him to take a shot at this creature, and he did. We're going to get into every single detail, but since that night, he's had a lot of strange encounters throughout his life, and we're going to talk about all of them.
Curtis's father led him down the dark trail, the beam of his flashlight bouncing between trees marked with reflective thumbtacks. They reached a clearing, and his father positioned him near a tree. "Stay here," he said, "and just watch my light." Curtis stood silently, alone for the first time in those woods. He watched as his father's light flashed 3 times, a signal from up the trail. Then, as the beam faded, Curtis heard it, a sudden, sharp crackling sound, like bubble wrap popping all around him. Something was moving.
So he walked up in the woods, he starts clearing a spot at this tree, and he said, okay, stand here, just watch my light. He went back out, started walking back up the trail where we came from. And I'm like, where's he going, So I'm watching him, then I see him come in the patch of woods. He flashed his light 3 times, so I'm looking to my left. Directly on my right, I hear a bunch of crackling, like bubble wrap.
He turned his head toward the thicket and saw nothing. Then came the first step, and then another, slow, heavy, deliberate. Through the brush, a pitch-black figure began to take shape, its silhouette outlined against the faint moonlight. At first, Curtis thought it might be a cow or a horse wandering out of a nearby field. But as it drew closer, its outline made less and less sense. The shoulders were broad, the head was elongated. There were no eyes reflecting light, no sound of breathing, no snort of an animal. It was like watching something glide, Curtis remembers. There was no sound, no crunching of leaves. It was just there, moving toward me. And then he heard it, not with his ears, but inside his mind, a voice. Calm, commanding like a stern father giving an order. "Shoot it." Curtis shouldered his .410 shotgun and fired. The flash of the shot lit up the clearing. His ears rang. His father's voice screamed his name from up the trail. But when his vision cleared, the thing was gone. In the pale moonlight, Curtis saw only a glimpse of a massive silver-gray shoulder gliding silently away, almost as if it were on an invisible escalator. He expected to find tracks, blood, any sign of what had just happened. There was nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no trace at all.
Got directly in front of me, and I can see the width of the shoulders, I guess, and a long, snout. So I'm saying, is this a horse walking sideways? It didn't make sense, and it was ugly. I mean, how this thing, soon as I shot, the flash went, I hear my dad yelling my name. Kurt. I mean, loud. And I'm bolt. But when I got my sight back...
When the sun finally rose, his father walked the area carefully. He found one matted down spot where something heavy had stood, then turned to Curtis. "Let's go." And just like that, they left. They never hunted that area again.
The whole time we heard crackling, we heard walking, and he's looking around. Now I'm paying attention to his demeanor, and he's like on high alert. But I paid attention to how many steps it took him to get out there. Now I can see there's a field in front of us. We was in a patch of woods that was probably about 30 feet wide.
Years later, Curtis would learn the truth. On Father's Day in 2022, decades after that morning in the woods, Curtis's father finally confessed what he had seen. "I had a feeling something was watching me," he said. "I stopped, scanned the trees, and a big black head peeked out from behind a tree. I turned and ran. For Curtis, the revelation was earth-shattering. All those years he thought he had been left alone by chance. Now he wondered if his father had led him directly to the creature, or if the creature had been waiting for him all along. But Curtis's encounters didn't end there. After joining the Navy, he began experiencing something even stranger: UFO sightings. Stationed aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower in 2005, he watched a silver craft hover silently over the USS Roosevelt before shooting straight up into the sky. Years later, when declassified Navy reports revealed that pilots had seen unidentified objects around the Roosevelt during that same period, Curtis felt vindicated. He believes the events are connected: the Bigfoot encounter, the voice in his head, the UFOs. Once you see one of these things, the odds of seeing something again go way up, Curtis says.
So it was up near where our gas tank is, where the delivery guy would come up. But I'm like, this guy is not this heavy, you know what I mean, to be leaving these kinds of tracks. So we left that alone. We didn't worry about it. So one evening, me and my son was talking in the kitchen, in this room that I'm in right now, this window here. We're talking, he had his back toward this room.
Even today, decades later, the encounters continue. After building his home in Bowmansville, Pennsylvania, Curtis discovered large bones stacked neatly on his lot and two massive footprints pressed deep into the wet ground after a storm. At night, he hears knocks, loud bangs against his house, and the unmistakable sense that he and his family are being watched.
What would have happened if I wouldn't have listened to that voice? That's the first time I ever heard that voice. As stern, it didn't yell. It was stern, like a father figure. Shoot it. And I did. I heard that voice again in 2000. I was in a bad place. Said, it's time for you to leave and go to the Navy. But this time, I'm questioning it or talking.
Curtis no longer hunts. He no longer ventures into deep woods. He keeps his blinds shut at night. Even with a firearm, he says, "I don't go out there. They know more about me than I know about them." His story leaves more questions than answers. Was it a flesh and blood creature that night in 1987? Or something else? Something that could glide silently through the forest and vanish without a trace? Whatever the answer, Curtis believes listening to that mysterious voice saved his life. And maybe that's the most haunting part. The idea that something out there, whether guardian or predator, knew he was there that night and chose to let him walk away. Footage, courtesy, Wild Man of the Woods. Location, Southeast Texas, swamps. Deep in the remote swamps of Southeast Texas, where the air is thick and the night sings with frogs and crickets, Jerry the Wolfman Mills has spent a lifetime hunting, fishing, and walking the woods. He's a respected elder and a reputable person of the society, a seasoned outdoorsman, and one of the few who still remembers the land as it used to be. His testimony is raw and unfiltered, a window into a world where man and mystery meet. It began with an invitation from a friend to go hunting on his deer lease. "Oh, by the way," his friend casually said, "there's Bigfoots out here." Jerry laughed it off, until the first wood knock echoed through the trees, then another, and then a third, coming from 3 different directions. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. His friend let out a whoop, and somewhere in the dark, one answered back.
Well, a friend of mine from work took me out to his deer lease, and he told me, "Oh, by the way, there's Bigfoots out here." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah." The guy's believable. He's a friend of mine. Next thing you know, we walk out onto the property and wood knock. He said, "You hear that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That was a squatch. That was a wood knock." Well, I've heard of wood knocks. I said, "For real?" And all of a sudden, I heard another one. And all of a sudden, there was from 3 different directions. And he was adamant. That's what. I said, "Well, I'll be dang, man."
Days later, Jerry returned to hunt again. This time, he was alone, walking along an open levee when he noticed fresh white feathers scattered across the water, drifting gently in the breeze. Something had killed an egret moments before. The kill site was still wet, still bleeding. Then came the sound of heavy pacing in the tree line beside him. Whatever it was, it matched his every step. Jerry didn't run. He pretended not to notice, hoping the creature would reveal itself. When it didn't, he finally raised his gun and shouted a warning into the woods. "If you're in there, you better come out, because I will shoot." Silence. Then, after several tense minutes, the pacing stopped. But his unease grew when his hunting partner called from a nearby stand. Something was pacing him too. Jerry made his way around to him and, sure enough, they found a single massive footprint in the mud, wider than Jerry's size 12 boot, water still running into it. It was his first real "oh my God" moment with Sasquatch.
And I got down there, and sure enough, he's doing the same thing I was doing. He's doing like this, and he turned his gun over there. Well, it got down to a ditch. I stepped out onto the pipeline, and he looked up, and it stopped. Well, he walked maybe 15, 20 feet and waited on me, and there was a footprint about that big and about that wide that I could put my number 12 bit of red wing.
Over the years, Jerry would have many more. One evening, from his deer blind, he couldn't shake the feeling he was being watched. His eyes kept returning to a spot along the tree line until, finally, a small figure, child-sized but running on 2 legs, bolted across the clearing at an inhuman speed. "I've never seen anything accelerate like that," Jerry recalled. He knew then he wasn't alone.
Jerry, the Wolfman Mills, encounters with the Sasquatch of the swamps of East Texas.
Of course, I've been going hunting since I was a little kid with my papa, and we always told, you never don't be sticking your gun out there and looking around through your scope like it's binoculars, they can see the gun sticking out.
Later that night, as dusk settled, Jerry and his partner packed up to leave. From across a clear cut came a loud, guttural sound. Not a coyote, not an owl, but something deep and primal. They froze. Then from just 20 yards away, a towering figure stepped onto the road. She was huge, 8 feet tall, 600 or 700 pounds, and crossed the road in just 2 effortless strides. The 2 men could only watch as she melted back into the woods. Days later, Jerry discovered a giant handprint on the back of his dusty truck. The thumb turned at an odd angle, as though something had leaned over to peer inside.
There's this big old handprint, and it's about like this, and the thumb comes out like this and turns straight up, except it's big. Shoot, 20 yards from the truck, maybe, and walked right across the road, right in front of us at a leisurely pace. She was hitting about 6 foot strides, and it didn't take but 2 to cross that road. And there was a little berm on the edge of the road where, dozers come in and push.
But perhaps the most terrifying moment came years later, when Jerry and a friend paddled a canoe into an isolated bayou known for activity. Almost immediately, they had contact. Wood knocks, movement on thermal, and the unmistakable sound of their aluminum boat being tampered with. When they returned, the boat had been dragged onto shore. Their paddles laid neatly in front of it, as if to let them know, we were here.
But of course, me and my buddy, he knows where it's at, let's go. So we went, and we had to take a boat to get to it. I don't know, we was probably a mile, maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles down the bayou, and there's just nothing out there. We get up in there, we're sitting there, we're probably 30 feet or so from the boat, but you can't see the boat because it's dark and we're in the thicket in the yopons, and it curls off.
Jerry doesn't believe these creatures are supernatural. They're just real, he says. They've been here as long as people have been here. And his words carry weight. Because once you've heard them, and once you've seen what Jerry has seen, you'll never look at the dark woods of Texas the same way again. Footage. Courtesy. BBQ. Bigfoot. Location. Remote Oregon wilderness. Deep in the Oregon backcountry, far away from the noise of civilization, stands a spot that changed one man's life forever. 6 years ago, he and his wife had an encounter that pulled them into the mystery of Bigfoot. And they've been coming back ever since. This time they've brought a guest, Brent Deal from the Tall Ones, to document what happened here and why this place still calls them back.
Here's where it happened, eh?
Yeah. This tree, right here.
This is where it happened, the witness says, standing by an old tree scarred and broken in a way that defies logic. This tree was standing right here with this one. It was pushed completely over, laid out on the ground, then twisted back.
You see where that fray is there? It was pushed completely over. The tree was laying on the ground, still attached to this part of it. Came all the way over here, and it laid here, and then it was broken, twisted, and came back to about right here.
And then another small tree was pulled up and laid right across it. It all happened right here.
And they pulled one up, a smaller one up out of the ground right over here, and laid it directly across it.
What might have looked to others like random storm damage seemed deliberate to him. And nearby, the couple found what they now call the blind, a concealed hideout, perfect for something trying to stay hidden while watching them. This was their peeking spot, he says, pointing through thick brush.
And this was where they were doing their peeking stuff through there, and up through here.
Back then, this cedar tree was full and green. You could just feel eyes on you. But the most chilling part of that first trip wasn't the broken trees. It was the tracks.
All over here. There was like one or two here, and then right about right here, right there, was a half a print that was over 20 inches long.
They were everywhere, he recalls, motioning to the soft ground. Some were full prints, some partial. Right here was a half print over 20 inches long. That's what convinced me this was real. You can't fake something like that, not in the middle of nowhere. And then came the moment that burned itself into his memory. I bent down to look at what I thought was a camping spot, and that's when I saw the head. It came down under the brush and looked right at me.
Stopped there and we were looking, and you see how those berry vines are? We're all I thought those were like a bench or something in there. And that's where, as I was bent down looking like this, the head came down. No, it was this one. I'm sorry. It was this one. The head came down through the underneath the brush and looked at me.
I thought it was a man at first, but then it did it again, and I saw the female walking down that path. She moved so smooth, so natural. It felt like she wanted me to see her. My wife thinks so too.
As she's walking, she just literally did this, come down and just like this. It was just that fluid and smooth. She walked back through here.
Like no thought was.
Yeah, it was like, it was obviously to draw my attention, I thought anyway. That's what my wife thinks too.
For a year, they returned again and again, leaving apples and even wild berry muffins as gifts. And when they came back a month later, they found something extraordinary, the perfect track of a juvenile.
When we came up the following month, there was a juvenile track right here, and it was like perfect.
This place just kept pulling us back, he says, walking along the trail. We started hearing tapping sounds, smelling that musky odor, hearing movement behind us. It was never overwhelming, just enough to let you know something was there.
Yeah, I was like, you smell that? And she's like, yeah. So we just, we walked up here, like we just kept walking. You know, the smell gets a little more and more, but never overwhelming. It just, you could tell that there was something there. You see the elk have been through here. They're rutting right now.
It's like they were letting us know we were being watched. The deeper they went, the stranger the feeling became. It gets dark fast here. You just get this eerie feeling, like you're not supposed to go any further. I've tried twice to climb up into that thick ridge, but I just can't make it. If you go up there, you'd need to spend the night.
But that goes a long ways. That's going to take a guy to go up and literally spend a night up in there, or at least go up and put whatever equipment needs to be taken up in those areas.
There's a water source up there, a pond. And if you look at this place on Google Earth, you can see huge trails running through here. It's their territory.
And if you look at it on Google Earth, there's several huge trails in here that are big, wide.
Over time, the couple came to believe there was more than one creature, a family unit, maybe even a clan, using this area as home. You can tell they've been here a long time, he says, stopping at another cluster of broken trees. They know how to live here. They know where the food is, where to get cover, where to hide. We just keep coming back year after year, and that's the only way you get real interaction. They've had close calls since then. Fresh footprints left near their camp. Heavy tree knocks echoing in the night. And just last season, a massive 16-inch print with no toes, perfectly pressed into the mud. A silent reminder that the big fella, as he calls him, still roams these woods.
Size of my rifle butt. No toes, but there was an imprint like as if your toes were like scrunched, so they were completely together. But yeah, it was right here. And then we had a real nice 16-incher just right behind you, and you could see where it had scuffed and then walked through the water.
This is where it all began, he says quietly, looking around at the dark trees. This spot is what brought me back into this whole subject. We feel connected to it now, my wife and I both. It's beautiful out here, but it's scary too. There are times you just know you're being watched. They could be within feet of you and you wouldn't even know it. The camera lingers on the ridge where the whoops were heard. The wind stirs the branches, and for just a moment, you can almost imagine a figure standing in the shadows, watching silently.
Lots of berries down in there. This side, as you look back there, got all them broken trees, lots of cover.
Yeah, I mean, they could be within feet of you and you
Yep.
wouldn't see them.
I could tell you right now, there's probably 4 or 5 up just right back there. I mean, probably. I bet you could spook them up if you walk back in there.
We could solve this mystery, he says with a half smile. If we all worked together. No egos, no fighting over who gets the credit. Just good teams, set up along this trail, doing it right. We could get answers for ourselves.
It'd be nice to do like a week-long expedition and have different teams set up along the trail here.
No egos.
Yeah.
We can solve this if we all work together.
Oh, I agree.
Get answers for ourselves.
Yeah, all on the same page with the same plan.
No, I'm gonna be the one. No, I'm gonna be the one.
Yeah, those are the people that disrupt investigations, derail them to the point where it's not even worth it.
Until then, this place remains a living mystery. A place where broken trees tell stories, where massive footprints appear and vanish, and where the forest itself seems to breathe with unseen life. And for the man who first saw a face peer through the brush here, it will always be the place that turned him from a camper into a believer. Deep in the heart of North Carolina lies the Uwharrie National Forest, a place where the pines grow thick, the nights turn pitch black, and the silence can feel heavier than the trees themselves. It's here, in this rugged, secluded wilderness, that Mike begins his latest journey, determined to uncover the truth about one of the most mysterious creatures on Earth, Bigfoot. The forest seems peaceful at first, the Baden Lake campground quiet under a blanket of stars. But Mike isn't here for peace. He's here to meet men with stories that could change the way we look at these woods forever.
Mike within the shadow of Big Red Eye here. Welcome to the Uwharrie National Forest. Might as well have some fun while we're out here. But anyways, all seriousness, or all jokingness aside, we're here for a serious reason. We're here for some library presentations, but we also got two witnesses coming at you that have been from the Uwharrie National Forest here.
The first is Lee Woods, a North Carolina investigator who has spent years studying the Uwharrie. As the fire crackles in the cool night air, Lee begins to tell Mike about a night back in 2010. A night he says he'll never forget. It was around 10:30 at night, Lee recalls, pointing toward the campsite where it all began. We were sitting right here by the fire, me, my son, Kenneth, and another guy named David. Then we heard it. Just one heavy wood knock.
It was me and my son and Kenneth and a guy named David. And we were sitting right here, and it was around 10:30 at night, had the fire going, and nothing's changed. This spot looks just like it did then. Nothing's changed. And about 10:30, back over in that direction, which would be campsite number 5. It's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We hear just one heavy wood knock.
In Bigfoot research, wood knocks are often considered a form of communication, warnings, signals, or even territorial displays. For Lee, this one sound was the beginning of a night he still thinks about over a decade later. Moments later, Lee started walking back toward his truck. That's when everything changed. It was like I hit a wall, he says, his voice steady but serious. Like something just told me to stop.
My truck was sitting down here. My truck was sitting right there in number 10 with that picnic bench there.
Okay.
And when I got right about between them two trees right there, it was almost just like I hit a wall. I mean, literally, it's like something just said stop.
I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it, like something was out there, watching me. For anyone who has spent time deep in the woods, that primal sensation, the feeling of being hunted, is unmistakable.
As I was standing there, I knew I could feel there was something out here. I could just feel it. So Ken hollered down here to me because I'd been standing here for about a minute and it was pitch black. And a lot of people don't understand. When I say you can't see your hand in front of your face down here some nights, I mean, you can't even see the tree. It's pitch black. I couldn't even see you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing here.
Lee stood frozen in the darkness, unable to shake the sense that something was just beyond the tree line. He eventually retrieved his night vision and returned to the fire, but the uneasiness never left. Then his son Joe, standing with a parabolic microphone, suddenly stiffened. He motioned for Lee to come closer. When I put the headset on, I didn't hear anything at first, Lee explains. But then I heard it. Breathing. Deep, heavy breathing, like something was struggling to catch its breath. It sounded just like a bear. That's what I thought it was at first, but it wasn't a bear.
He's standing here with a parabolic dish. He's standing like this right here. And about probably 15 minutes later, he's standing right here, and he said, come here. So I come back over here, put it back in my ear, and just as soon as I put it back in my ear, straight ahead, right down through there, I hear, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And dude, he went, you hear that? And I said, yeah.
Yeah.
First thing went through my head again, bear. And I thought, oh my God, there is a bear down there. That's what I heard.
Minutes later, Ken caught something on his night vision. A figure standing near a large tree just beyond the campsite. Lee grabbed his own device, adjusted the focus, and there it was, a massive figure, towering, motionless, just watching them. The head was way up there, Lee says, holding his hand far above his own head to show the height. And then I saw it move, first behind the tree, then out the other side, back and forth, watching us the whole time. What struck Lee the most was not just the size of the creature, but the intelligence in its movements. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't rushing us. She was observing, leaning out slowly, showing a little more of herself each time, like she was letting us know she was there. Lee and Ken watched the creature for nearly half an hour. At one point, the figure turned slightly, and that's when they knew.
So I looked at the night vision, and just as soon as I picked that night vision up, she was there, and then I stood there and looked at her for maybe 20 or 30 seconds. And she went back behind the tree, and then she went to the other side. She leaned up on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Then she came back to this side, and she was going from one side to the other, leaning out. But every time she leaned out, you see just a little bit more.
You could see it was a female, Lee says. You could see her whole upper body, clear as day through the night vision. She was massive, thick shoulders, cone-shaped head, arms hanging low. And those eyes, they glowed green in the night vision. They were as big as the lens of a camera.
She came out and she turned like this right here. She turned real slow. And that's when we could see it was a female, because you could see the breast.
Right.
And you could see the eyeballs. That was one thing that I noticed right off the bat. Because through my night vision, it was kind of a greenish gray look. So her eye was showing up green, and her eye was as big around as that lens right there on your camera. That's the God's honest truth at that distance.
Wow.
Then, as suddenly as it began, the encounter was over. The figure walked slowly out of sight, disappearing into the thick foliage. And almost immediately, 2 loud wood knocks echoed from the nearby forest, as if signaling her safe departure. For Lee, the night confirmed what he had always believed. These creatures are real, intelligent, and never alone.
Right back down to number 5. 2 hits on a wood knock.
Oh, wow.
It was like they were letting them know she was leaving the area. And the one thing that I've told people, and I'll say it again, the one thing that I will never forget is the way that it looked and the way that it moved.
Where there's one, there's two. Where there's two, there's three, he says. They travel together. They watch us just as much as we watch them.
And what was weird about that was I've always told people, where there's one, there's two, where there's two, there's three, and that is a fact. They never are alone.
From Uwharrie, Mike continues west to Asheville, another hot spot for strange activity. The Blue Ridge Mountains loom like silent sentinels, their misty slopes hiding countless secrets. But if Lee's story proves anything, it's that those secrets aren't staying hidden forever. This journey through North Carolina blends witness testimony, on-site investigation, and raw, unfiltered encounters. A reminder that some mysteries are closer than we think, waiting for those brave enough to step into the dark and look for answers. The Trail to Bigfoot team moved quietly through the Florida forest, stepping softly over damp leaves and moss. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the swamp, and the air smelled rich with earth and water. They had come back to a familiar area, curious to see if anything had changed since their last visit. Their mission was simple: leave a few offerings, observe, and respect the forest around them. Near an old refrigerator tucked among the trees, the team carefully placed some food and a small tennis ball. Every movement was gentle, deliberate, meant to show curiosity without disturbance. The forest seemed to hold its breath, alive with soft rustles and the occasional distant bird call. Then, faint but clear, came a subtle knock from deeper in the trees. He paused, aware that something intelligent might be nearby, watching quietly from the shadows. They adjusted the cameras, capturing the scene in a wider view.
I just left some stuff. The main thing is we left a tennis ball behind.
I feel like I'm leaving offerings to the gods or something, you know?
We don't mean anybody no harm. That's all we just want.
Mosquitoes hovered around, but the team barely noticed. Their focus was on the forest's subtle sounds: a stick snapping, a leaf shifting, a quiet tap that might have been a Bigfoot investigating their offerings. The feeling of presence grew stronger, not threatening, but patient and aware, like an unseen guest observing their care and respect. Moving cautiously along a narrow path, they listened to every sound amplified by the thick forest. Another knock echoed, this one sharper, closer. The team stayed calm, allowing space for whatever was there to remain undisturbed. Moss draped from the trees, and the swamp's murky water reflected the fading light. The offerings remained untouched, yet the sense of acknowledgement lingered, a quiet confirmation that something had noticed their presence.
That's Martin moving. Man, this couldn't go. All right, we're going to leave. I'll see about filming my rear.
The group began to step back toward a small clearing, scanning the shadows with care. Branches whispered overhead, water gurgled in the distance, and every rustle suggested life moving just out of sight. A gentle knock sounded again, reminding them of the patient observer nearby. It was not an aggressive presence, only curious and watchful, responding to the respect shown by the Trail to Bigfoot team. As the team moved slowly out of the dense swamp, they glanced back at the scattered offerings and the mossy forest floor. Nothing had been disturbed, yet the encounter left a lasting impression. The forest was quiet, holding its secrets, while faint taps and subtle sounds lingered in their memory. The team left with a sense of wonder, knowing that some mysteries are best met with patience, respect, and quiet curiosity. The swamp stretched behind them, shadows deepening as twilight set in. The Trail to Bigfoot team walked carefully, aware that these lands were home to creatures rarely seen. The faint knocks and whispers of the forest stayed with them, a gentle reminder of a presence that watches without haste, leaving more questions than answers, and an enduring respect for the mysteries of Florida's wilderness. Out near Mount Hood, the forest feels quietly alive. The air is damp, carrying soft whispers from the trees and the steady sound of a nearby creek. Today, the team is setting up a circle of trail cameras around base camp. One camera is placed by the creek, because if animals are drawn to water, maybe something larger is too. The forest feels patient, almost watching. Each tree seems to hold a secret.
All right, there's one of our base camp game cameras, kind of using this tree next to it to help shield and hide it from two animal trails that merge right here. It's obvious the animals are coming to the creek to drink near base camp, so we'll keep an eye on that.
As the cameras are placed, the team moves carefully, respecting the woods. The trail is soft and muddy, perfect for footprints. In a swampy area, impressions start to appear. Some are small and familiar, others larger, deeper, and mysterious. A spot shows signs that something heavy rested here recently, leaving the soil pressed down and leaves scattered. Even the smell of skunk cabbage reminds us how alive this forest is.
In this real swampy area, looking for Bigfoot tracks, because the normal forest ground, it just don't show up as well, but they step in something like that. Well, something something bedded down right here. More thorns right there. That smells like skunk cabbage.
Tracking takes patience. Large paw prints appear, clearly from a bear, claws visible, weight evident in the depth. But bears and Bigfoot often share spaces, drawn to water and food. Nearby, a giant front paw imprint confirms a black bear passed here. Yet the team knows this is only part of the forest story. Each footprint tells of life moving quietly, hidden and careful. Deeper in the woods, clusters of broken branches and root balls catch attention. The forest keeps its secrets well, blending nature and mystery in every step. Giant trees tower overhead, their shadows shifting with the wind.
Well, I get excited when I find bear tracks, because Bigfoot and bear are after the same thing, and a lot of times we find their tracks in the same areas. There's a giant one right there, Jen. Look at that giant tree. It's just massive. I mean, it's surrounded by big trees. But he's a giant.
Observing the forest is about learning its rhythms as much as searching for the unknown. Each bear track, each broken branch, each subtle shift in shadows is part of the story. Perhaps one day we'll see more clearly what roams here. Until then, the forest quietly teaches patience, respect, and wonder. The day ends, but the forest continues its rhythm. Cameras click silently, water flows steadily, and the woods remain alive with movement. Every footprint, every branch, every shift in shadow is a reminder that nature's story is never fully told. The forest invites curiosity, respect, and reflection, leaving the mystery of its hidden life both compelling and real. Some answers may come, but the quiet wonder of this forest will endure. It's quiet in southern Alberta, back at a spot called Cow Corner. The trees stretch high, and the forest feels alive but gentle. He has been here a few months ago, leaving small gifts for those who visit these woods. Today he is curious to see what might have changed, and Blue is with him. The dog is eager, alert, and ready to explore. The air is soft, carrying a hint of smoke drifting from distant fires, and the forest smells fresh and earthy. It's peaceful, yet there is a sense of presence, something more moving quietly in the woods. As he starts down the narrow trail, the ground is damp, leaves glistening, and small branches tucked into the soil. Blue moves ahead, sniffing, ears twitching at sounds barely heard. Occasionally, a distant cow's low call echoes, or maybe it is something else moving quietly just beyond sight. The forest seems to speak in subtle ways, the bending of a branch, the soft tap of wood underfoot. Every small detail draws attention, making it clear that Cow Corner is full of life that cannot always be seen.
So this is interesting. Seeing something else here, guys. I'm spinning around. Okay, folks. Getting back in here to the thick of it. He's getting tuckered out already.
Reaching the gifting area, he notices small changes from the last visit. A Y-shaped stick wedged between trees, a sitting log not where remembered, and stones that may have been moved or taken. There is a gentle, musky scent in the air, a quiet reminder that the woods are visited. He leaves a few gifts, red plums, cranberries, and raw almonds, tokens of respect. Blue enjoys his treats, chasing squirrels and sometimes startling at noises far off in the trees. Each snap and tap keeps him alert, yet calm, aware that the forest has its own rhythm and stories.
I don't remember that. This is my sitting log right here. I don't remember that big log laying there. And then one little Blue.
The creek near the gifting site murmurs softly as they cross. Water always seems to attract life here, and the forest seems to pause around it. He takes a slow walk back into the thicker trees, noticing small patterns, stones in rectangles, slight clearings, and subtle signs of previous visitors. Blue moves carefully, sensing things that may be missed. As the light fades, smoke from distant fires drifts across the forest, softening shapes and colors. The woods feel alive, quietly observing them as they leave, the small gifts left behind as a sign of respect and curiosity. Heading back toward the main road, the shadows grow longer, and the sounds of snaps and taps continue softly on both sides of the trail. It's a peaceful conclusion to the visit, yet full of questions. Who else passes through Cow Corner? What messages do these small offerings hold? The forest keeps its secrets, but in these quiet walks, he witnesses a little of its magic. Blue and he move gently through the trees, leaving the woods as they found them, alive, mysterious, and quietly welcoming. On May 24, 2025, a group of experienced river guides from Colorado River Expeditions jumped on what was supposed to be a routine first trip of the season. Their aim? Navigate the upper Colorado River, reconnect with nature, and scout the route ahead for the summer's rafting tours. But what they filmed on that quiet morning has given rise to online debates, triggered Bigfoot believers, and chilled even hardened skeptics.
It was moving, I saw it move.
Yeah, I saw it move too.
It's a bear, you think? Maybe no. No, they can't climb out.
I don't know, I'll go around.
No, okay, it's moving. It's
Where is it? Do you see it?
Yeah, I do. That brown against the tree.
Dude, it's like hidden in the tree.
See the slant right here?
As their raft drifted through a patch of green riverbank, one of the guides spotted movement on the far shore. His voice trembles as he mentions it is moving, not with fear, but with the excitement of someone seeing something they can't explain. Another voice quickly follows. I saw it move. It's like a berry thing, maybe? At first, they think it could be a bear or a deer, maybe. But then the tone shifts. The disbelief is immediate as the experienced river guides mention that this is not how bears behave. Their instincts, honed from years in the wild, tell them this isn't normal. The camera struggles to lock onto the figure as it moves between the trees. It's partially hidden, covered by branches and shadows. Someone points in a direction for others to see, but it's hard to see with the naked eye. One of the guides uses a smartphone to zoom in. The creature appears bigger than a man, standing unnaturally still, watching.
Bigger than a normal size man. Dude! It's creepy.
Look at my phone, you can see it.
Wait, I want to see it in the phone.
I want to see too.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, that's weird.
Guys, come look in the phone, you can see it.
It's the tension between visibility and obscurity that makes the footage so important. The figure doesn't move like a bear, and it doesn't resemble a human wearing his camping gear. It has a broad, tall, dark form. From a distance, it almost blends in with the rocky outcropping behind it, until you see it move slightly, as if adjusting its stance. Then, suddenly, silence. The thing stands motionless again. What's most telling is the reaction of the guides. These aren't YouTubers looking to stage a viral moment. These are professionals trained to handle dangerous grounds and unpredictable wildlife. When they start nervously laughing, calling others over, it's the genuine sound of people processing something impossible.
Plotting against us. We come in peace.
We come in
I can't zoom in any more than this.
I know.
They do appear to be joking, yet there's a quiet seriousness in their voices. They are not sure what they are looking at. The camera can't zoom any further. The figure remains at a distance, present, still, and oddly aware. Someone urges the others to look at his clip, and that's where the footage ends abruptly, incomplete, and yet deeply disturbing. The clip has gained thousands of views, not because it's dramatic, but because it is very subtle. There's no howl, no roar, no blurry sprinting shadow. Instead, it's a moment captured in time, something watching, something large, and something one might not be able to explain. And in Bigfoot research, those moments that are quiet, unscripted, raw, are sometimes the ones that haunt you the longest. Location: North Carolina. The forests of North Carolina have always carried a quiet, watchful feeling. The kind that makes you look over your shoulder even when you know you're alone. For 3 North Carolinians, that feeling became much more than just nerves. Their encounters with something massive, intelligent, and terrifying are enough to shake even the most skeptical mind. Tim Wheeler is a self-proclaimed mountain man. Tough, experienced, and used to the sounds of the wild. But the night he came face to face with a creature he believes was Bigfoot, he admits it shook him to his core. He was out calling coyotes, something he'd done countless times before. The sun had dipped behind the trees, leaving just enough light to see the outline of his property. At first, he thought he had succeeded. He could hear movement, branches breaking. But what stepped out of the tree line wasn't a coyote.
This thing was 10 foot tall. He had beautiful hair. It scared me.
This thing was 10 feet tall, Tim recalls, his voice still trembling years later. It had beautiful hair, but it scared me to death. When the creature went after his dogs, Tim grabbed his gun and ran outside. I hollered at it, told it to get away. And it did. But then it came back. Panicked, he called 911. Deputies arrived, filing what they listed as a suspicious person report. But everyone who saw Tim that night knew he wasn't talking about a person. His description was eerily detailed. A creature with long arms, a flat face, and, most disturbing of all, 6 fingers, bobwies on each hand. Even Cleveland County deputies admitted they were baffled. "It blows my mind," Sergeant Mark Self said at the time. The stories of a Sasquatch have been in this county since the 1970s, killing chickens, breaking into houses. And what Tim described sounds just like those old reports. But Tim isn't the only North Carolinian with a story to tell.
By the way, the legend of the Sasquatch has been in Cleveland County since the 1970s. This time, the spotting came into 911 as a suspicious persons report.
What do you think?
Well, you know, this is the first time I've actually heard the Bigfoot with blonde hair, but it's been so sunny out, you know, and it could have bleached out the hair a bit. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he found a bottle of peroxide or something.
Possibly. Who knows? Yeah.
All right.
Meet John Bruner, a soft-spoken man who claims to have locked eyes with a Bigfoot for a full 10 seconds. "It was huge," John says. Bipedal. No hair on its face, flat nose, stringy, matted hair on its body. And it smelled awful. Worse than a wet dog, almost like a musty, rotten hide. John's sighting happened during a weekend Bigfoot hunting expedition. It was the closest encounter he's ever had, and it left him shaken. The thing took 5 steps and covered 40 yards, John explains. 5 steps? That's not human. That's like something out of a superhero comic. Like LeBron James on steroids. Skeptics laughed, but John didn't care. He knows what he saw, and he's not alone. 911 dispatchers in the region have fielded calls from terrified residents reporting strange noises, knocks, and even screams echoing through the night.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, no, Ziggy, no.
Then there's Ebony Bird, whose encounter happened in the small town of Littleton on a chilly November evening in 2019. She was driving near Bowers Road, headed to the post office before it closed. "I came to a stop sign," she says. "I looked down the road, and there it was. Bigfoot. It was standing upright like a man, broad-shouldered, its arms hanging past its knees. Ebony was so stunned she kept driving, then turned around and went back. I couldn't find it again," she explains. "But I know what I saw. It wasn't a man. It wasn't a bear. It was Bigfoot." Her cousin didn't believe her, laughing when she called to tell the story. But Ebony's aunt didn't laugh. "She told me there have been sightings in that area before," Ebony says. That gave me chills. I wasn't crazy. Other people have seen it too. For Ebony, the moment was life-changing.
But it wasn't a human. It was not a human. So I turned around, I put my stuff in the post office, and I came back and I turned down here and I drove all the way down to where I saw it, and I couldn't find anything in sight. There's a church back on this side, and then there's a graveyard.
I've never been one to lie or make up stories, she says firmly. I was shaken for days after that. But I know what I saw: 3 different witnesses, 3 very different encounters, all pointing to one chilling truth. There is something roaming the woods of North Carolina, something massive, intelligent, and powerful enough to terrify even lifelong outdoorsmen. Whether it was a 10-foot creature chasing Tim's dogs, a massive shadow stepping toward John in the wilderness, or the broad-shouldered figure Ebony saw in the middle of the road, one thing is certain. The legend of Sasquatch in North Carolina is alive and well, and the people who have seen it will never forget the moment they came face to face with the unexplained. In a world where stories fade too quickly, it's voices like these, from seasoned hunters, elders, and even those who've served in the Navy, that remind us Bigfoot isn't just a campfire tale. These are first-hand accounts, lived and remembered by people who have walked those dark woods and faced the unknown. As our witnesses grow older, their words become even more valuable. Hold on to them, because one day, they might be the only proof we have left.